In the early 19th century, when Europe believed it had finally escaped the chaos of revolution and returned to royal order, a new and far more powerful storm rose from the heart of France, led by a man who would rewrite the rules of war, shatter ancient empires, and force kings to kneel before his genius. A man whose name would echo through history like thunder, Napoleon Bonaparte. And from 1803 to 1815, his wars would turn an entire continent into a battlefield and reshape the modern world forever. After the French Revolution had overthrown monarchy and shaken the foundations of Europe, France was exhausted, divided, and surrounded by enemies who feared that revolutionary ideas would spread like fire across their kingdoms. From this chaos emerged Napoleon, a young artillery officer from Corsica who rose through talent, discipline, and daring, winning brilliant victories in Italy and Egypt, inspiring soldiers with his presence and convincing the French people that he alone could restore order, pride, and glory. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor, placing the crown on his own head before the Pope could touch it, sending a clear message to Europe that his power came not from tradition, but from achievement and ambition. Monarchs were shocked, nobles were alarmed, alliances formed in secret, war became inevitable. By 1803, France was once again at war with the United Kingdom, the greatest naval and financial power in the world. Britain controlled the seas, protected by a massive fleet and global trade network, while Napoleon dominated the land with fast-moving armies and revolutionary tactics. Unable to invade Britain directly, Napoleon planned to crush it economically through the continental system, ordering European nations to block British goods, hoping to destroy its economy without firing a shot. Instead, this policy damaged his own allies, weakened markets, and created resentment that would later turn against him. On land, however, Napoleon seemed invincible. His armies marched faster than any before. His soldiers were fiercely loyal. His strategies were bold and unexpected. His leadership inspired absolute devotion. In 1805, he achieved one of the greatest victories in military history at Austerlitz, where he defeated Russian and Austrian forces using deception, timing, and terrain, destroying two empires' armies in a single day and earning the title Master of Europe. Shortly afterward, he crushed Prussia and marched triumphantly into Berlin, dismantling old political systems and replacing them with French-controlled states. At sea, however, Napoleon suffered a devastating blow at Trafalgar, where the British Navy destroyed the combined French and Spanish fleet, ensuring that Britain would rule the oceans for generations and making any invasion impossible. From that moment on, Napoleon would dominate land but never sea. By 1807, his empire stretched across Europe. He controlled Italy, Germany, Poland, and much of Central Europe. His brothers ruled Spain, Holland, and Naples. His laws modernized legal systems. His reforms promoted merit over birth. Feudal privileges collapsed. Many people saw him as a liberator who destroyed ancient injustices. Others saw him as a conqueror who ruled through fear and endless war. At the height of his power, Napoleon commanded more than 600,000 soldiers and ruled over tens of millions of people. Europe had never seen anything like it. But empire created resistance. In Spain, French occupation sparked a savage guerrilla war. Peasants, priests, and civilians launched ambushes, sabotaged supply lines, and assassinated officers. French troops responded with brutal reprisals. Villages burned, civilians died. The conflict became a nightmare known as the Spanish Ulcer, slowly draining Napoleon's strength and morale. Then came his greatest gamble. In 1812, frustrated by Russian defiance of his economic blockade, Napoleon launched a massive invasion of Russia, leading the largest army Europe had ever seen, more than 600,000 men from dozens of nations, marching across endless plains, convinced that one decisive victory would force the Russian emperor to surrender. The Russians refused to cooperate. They retreated. They burned crops. They destroyed cities. They left nothing behind. Napoleon chased an invisible enemy deeper into hostile territory. When he finally reached Moscow, he found it abandoned and burning. There was no surrender, no peace, only ashes and silence. Then winter arrived. Temperatures dropped below freezing. Food disappeared. Horses collapsed. Weapons froze. Disease spread. During the retreat, Russian forces attacked relentlessly. Thousands died each day from cold, hunger, and exhaustion. Frozen bodies lined the roads. The once glorious Grand Army disintegrated into desperate survivors. By the time Napoleon escaped, fewer than 1/6 of his soldiers remained. His myth of invincibility was shattered. Europe rose against him. Prussia, Austria, Russia, and Britain united in a massive coalition. In 1813, they confronted Napoleon at Leipzig, the largest battle in European history at that time. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers clashed in smoke and thunder. Cannons roared for days. When it ended, Napoleon was defeated. His empire began to collapse. Cities rebelled. Allies betrayed him. Armies marched on Paris. In 1814, surrounded and outnumbered, Napoleon abdicated and was exiled to the small island of Elba. Europe celebrated. Kings returned. Peace seemed restored. But Napoleon was not finished. In 1815, he escaped from exile and returned to France. As he marched towards Paris, soldiers sent to arrest him instead joined him. Crowds cheered. Flags were raised. The king fled. In weeks, Napoleon reclaimed power without firing a shot. This astonishing comeback became known as the 100 Days. Europe reacted instantly. A new coalition formed. Armies rushed to stop him before he could rebuild his empire. The final showdown came in June 1815 at Waterloo. Rain soaked the battlefield. Mud trapped cannons. Smoke covered the sky. Thousands charged through gunfire. For hours, victory hung in the balance. Napoleon launched massive assaults, trying to break enemy lines. His guards fought to the last. Cavalry thundered across fields. Infantry stood firm under relentless fire. When fresh Allied forces arrived, the French army collapsed. Defeat was complete. Napoleon fled, surrendered, and was sent into permanent exile on a remote Atlantic island, far from Europe, far from power, far from glory. He would die there years later, alone with his memories and legends. The Napoleonic Wars were over. More than 10 million people had died. Empires had fallen. Borders had changed. Societies had transformed. At the Congress of Vienna, European leaders tried to rebuild order, creating a balance of power designed to prevent another Napoleon from rising. Diplomacy became more important. Nationalism spread. Modern politics took shape. Napoleon's legacy was vast and complex. He spread modern legal systems. He promoted talent over nobility. He inspired nationalism. He modernized governments. He showed the power of ambition. He revealed the danger of absolute authority. From obscure officer to emperor, from conqueror to exile, his life became one of history's greatest epics, a story of genius, courage, pride, and downfall. The Napoleonic Wars were not merely battles for land. They were battles for identity, ideology, and the future of Europe. They marked the transition from old monarchies to modern nations. They proved that one determined individual could shake an entire continent. And even today, centuries later, the echo of Napoleon's armies still lives in laws, borders, and political systems across the world, reminding humanity that greatness and tragedy often walk side by side, and that the rise and fall of empires can sometimes depend on the vision and ambition of a single man.